Welcome to the Multiplayer Podcast Bonus Round. We're a video game podcast that covers a new game each week. But right now, you're listening to a bonus round episode. We are joined today by Mr. and Mrs. Pac-Man. Paul?
What's kicking, little chicken?
And
I can't work under these conditions anymore.
I like that one. That was my favorite one yet.
Oh, thank you.
And Josh.
Waka, 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 waka. That's Pac-Man sound.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Thank you. I was hoping you knew what it was.
Almost as good as your Reinhardt impersonation at
Dude,
the end
don't
of
pick on.
last
I listened to that back, and it was not as bad as I thought it was. I put a lot of effort into that.
You did. A for effort.
Yeah.
Are you guys ready for today's topic? We're talking about arcades, some of our favorites, memories from the past, and really what games made us kings of the arcade.
Man, this episode was made for me.
Yeah.
I mean, this is my heyday. You youngins, I know you guys are old enough to appreciate arcades, but I grew up in the age of arcades.
Yeah. All right, guys, grab your quarters. And for you youngins, don't tune out yet. Just pull up a chair and Papa Josh is going to tell us about playing Area 51 uphill both ways through the rain.
Back in my day, we had to wait in line to play video games.
And the guns were never calibrated properly.
Oh, no, that still
Oh my
happens
goodness,
today.
that was the worst. I mean, all right, so when I say arcades, like what's the first arcade that you guys have in your mind?
Mine was, so I grew up in Pennsylvania, and the main arcade that is the highlight of my memories was an arcade named Aladdin's Castle, which number one sounds amazing, right? Like, it's Aladdin's Castle, magical. And then it was in the mall, and no lie, this arcade was gigantic, a smaller like Kmart. It was huge. That to me, like going to the mall with my parents and not being able to go into the arcade was torture. But if I went to the mall and I was like, Mom, can I have like $2 to go play games? And they'd actually give you the quarters, and then you would just sprint like mad. And then you were in like this wonderland of like gamers paradise.
Yeah, mine was kind of like that. But it was in a strip mall, and
Really glad you said
like
mall right there.
But it took up, like when I was really young, it took up probably the space of like 2 to 3 stores where like they just kind of blocked off the doors so you could only enter through one. And then as I got older, the arcade actually grew, or whatever shops were next to it just went out of business. So then it like eventually took up like 5 stores widths. And it was just this giant arcade that was called Fun.
What a great
That's
name.
not even a lie. Like Fun, Fayetteville, North Carolina. Like, it was amazing.
They're not too creative there with their naming, are they?
Hey, I just knew I was going to have fun. They set the expectation for me before I even entered the door.
You do know what's inside when the name of the place is Fun.
Yeah, fun.
Yeah.
So what I think of with arcades is a little bit different. I'm a Phoenix native here, and the earliest memories that I have of playing in arcades was probably like from 5 to 8. And here in Phoenix, apparently we had slightly more creative names, but we had Pistol Pete's Pizza. And if you want to laugh at some ridiculously old pizza family restaurants, go on YouTube. You can still find old commercials for Pistol Pete's. They had super creepy giant animatronic animals that would sing, and they had an arcade connected to that. So that's the first thing I think of. And then they ended up being bought out by another Phoenix company called Peter Piper Pizza, which is only here in the Southwest US. So if you're somewhere else in the country, you probably haven't heard of it. But that was a place that I used to go to all the time after high school football games, because I was in marching band and we would always perform every Friday night. And after the games, we would go spend several hours at Peter Piper Pizza playing tons of games. And so for me, it's not so much separate arcades, but it was the add-on arcades connected to the pizza places.
I'm surprised they didn't call it Peter Piper
Pistol Pete's Pizza.
Pistol Pete Pizza.
Pepperoni.
Yeah, just
They loved the alliteration with the P's, and Peter Piper Pizza is the pizza people pick. Those were their commercials back in the day.
That's awful.
You're really good at saying that. You can tell Paul's practiced a lot for this episode.
Yep.
It's funny because Chuck E. Cheese, like we all remember Chuck E. Cheese. I think that was like the nationwide one. But everybody had like you had the Pistol Pete's. Like where I grew up, we had Celebration Station, and that's where you wanted to have your birthday party because it was pizza and arcade games and the creepy animatronics.
Oh, so they had the animatronics there too.
Oh yeah, Celebration Station had the animatronics, and I guess Chuck E. Cheese didn't. Maybe they just had that weird mouse, but
they had a band.
Chuck E. Cheese
had a full band.
Did they have the animatronic band?
My Chuck E. Cheese had a full animatronic band that was so dang creepy.
Oh, here all along, I thought it was just Pistol Pete's and maybe one or two others. I didn't know this was like nationwide.
I don't. What's the deal with pizza and animatronic bands? I don't see the connection on why so many people made.
Because you need entertainment while you're eating your pizza.
Do you?
And they'd always just keep playing the same song. So you could run up and push the button, and they would always play just the same song over and over.
What's funny is, Five Nights at Freddy's is insanely popular and huge. And people don't realize, like, that was came about from our childhood, man. Like, these creepy animatronics were like, we legitimately sat in the places and watched them sing. And then somebody went, these things are freaking creepy, man. Like, we should turn this into like a horror game. And then I'm sure they're rich now, but
we all grew up and agreed, let's make horror games with these characters. Yeah, that is funny. But yeah, I mean, do you guys have like any like core early memories of playing in arcades?
Oh man, sit down, fellas. This is memory lane for me right here. All right. So it wasn't always just, I don't know about you guys, but it wasn't always just like the mega arcades. It was just like sometimes you could go into like a local pizza place or even just like a small little like convenience
gas
store,
stations,
7-Elevens, right? And they would have like 2 or 3 arcade games like tucked back in the corner somewhere.
I thought those were gambling machines at gas stations.
No, that's just what your parents told you, so they didn't have to give you quarters. But that was honestly what I loved is like places had 1 or 2 and you would find a game that you really liked playing, and even though it wasn't in like a major arcade, you would go back to that place just to play that game. Like we had a little deli when I was a kid that I didn't have money for food, but we'd find quarters here and there and we'd go to that deli because they had Streets of Rage on the arcade game. And then they had, it was Streets of Rage and Double Dragon were the two that they had.
What Streets of Rage?
It's like a fighting
classic
game. Yeah. It's like a co-op fighting game. No lie, proud video game moment here. Me and my buddy went to this deli. We found 50 cents on the ground and we went to there to play Double Dragon. I beat the entire arcade game of Double Dragon on 1 quarter. From start to finish, all the way through, had my name, because you got to put your initials like after you in the leaderboard right there, which is, guess what? That's kind of where we get our leaderboard segment. Like, it was great. 1 quarter. We were there for like 45 minutes playing that game off of 1 quarter. It was a grand moment. That's
really where pay to win mechanics came in.
Yep.
Where like if you died, you just put in another quarter and you're fine.
Yep. Continue, and you'd get the countdown timer. And the most terrifying thing was if you still had money but you didn't have quarters,
sprinting to make change.
Yeah.
You had to run as fast as you could so that you could continue before the timer ran out.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for me, I think about when I was really young and my parents would take us out to dinner and we would go to Pistol Pete's. A lot of times we would meet other families from our church and we'd be there on Saturday nights. And my parents always really valued instilling in us children a sense of appreciation and frugality. And so a lot of my friends would always get like $5 of quarters or things like that. And we always got $1. So we'd go out to eat and I only had 4 tokens. and I would just like walk around and watch people play. I was one of those kids that was always checking the payphone return for quarters or pushing coin return on every game, trying to get more. And so I always had just those 4 quarters. And you know what? It always went to Turtles in Time. It was always a Ninja Turtles game for the most part. And I remember one of the greatest days of my life was a friend of mine and I went to an arcade, and one of the machines it like wasn't locked properly. And we went to just like touch it, and it popped open and all the coins were inside. And we each just grabbed a huge fistful of tokens and just like stuck them in our pockets and ran away because we were afraid we were going to get in trouble. And that was amazing because I probably ended up with, I don't know, it was probably like 20 tokens at the time. But for me, that was just like incredible to get that many at once.
That's awesome. For me, so like I made fun of Tony Hawk Pro Skater Skate, I think is what it was the other day. But like the classic arcade game that I loved playing was Top Skater, which is basically just like a machine with a fixed skateboard that you jump on the back, and like it's an arcade skateboard game where you just race downhill as fast as you can. And that game was so much fun.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I had to pull it up on Google Image. Yeah, I do remember this one. Yeah, that was, I think this one was like kind of expensive when it came out. That was like one of the early like 50-cent games.
I was going to say, if you had any of the gimmicks where you got to stand on something or sit in something, like you were paying a premium for that.
Whether it's a motorcycle, a skateboard, there were some like jet skis and stuff like that.
Yeah.
My favorite gimmicky game, like, I don't even know how to describe this. It was the first, I don't even think it was VR. It was more like, I guess it's VR, but it wasn't 3D. But you pull down a headset and you put it on your head, and then you transport in time to, I think it's World War II, where you're just shooting people running up the beachhead. And I looked it up, and it's called Beachhead 2000.
It's funny because I'm sure at the time Beachhead 2000 was a futuristic reference. You know what I mean? Like in the year 2000.
Yeah.
There were a lot of games or arcade systems back then that really were ahead of their time. Do you guys remember the old Sega hologram video game machines?
I remember that.
Do you remember those?
Trippy, man.
Dude, I feel like if you came out with those today, they would still seem futuristic. And that was back in the early 90s. Yeah, they had a mirror that was like a spherical mirror, and it had the 3-dimensional hologram. And when you were a kid and saw that, like, you thought it was like magic. I mean, it looked just like the Princess Leia holograms in Star Wars, only you could play Holocene is the one that I remember. It was a fighting game that was, 3-dimensional holograms. It was so cool. You almost kind of wish they would bring stuff like that back today.
Yeah, I am a little disappointed, like, whenever I go in Dave & Buster's or anything, there isn't anything really groundbreaking there.
Yeah.
It's a lot of, like, Angry Birds or, like, Fruit Ninja, like, mobile games that they just put on a giant screen.
Or, like, Temple Run, like, really old mobile games by today's standards.
Yeah, I wish they would be more innovative with, like, what games they have in Dave & Buster's and all that. But I guess, like, they know those games are going to be popular and people are going to play them.
Since we're kind of on the subject of, like, more of the novel arcade machines, do you guys remember the game? I don't remember what it's called. I should have looked it up on Google earlier. But it was the game that would shock you. So you'd, like, put in a quarter and you would hold the 2 metal paddles.
Oh, yes.
And they would, like, vibrate, and it'd be like, how long can you hold on?
Can hold on?
Yeah, and it would time you, and you would have to hold on to it. I can't really imagine a game like that quite coming out today, but there were so many novel games. I feel like they were really innovative from, like, the mid-90s to the early 2000s, and then they just kind of gave up, I guess. There must just not be enough money in it.
I don't know if, like, forgive me, but were you guys around when Mortal Kombat hit the arcades?
I remember
the original Mortal Kombat.
See, I wasn't allowed to play Mortal Kombat, but I could play it on Sega without the blood code.
Oh, I got
So I did play it at a friend's house, but I did not play it in the arcades.
See, this was the beauty of the arcades in the mall, right? As you were walking by, all of a sudden you'd see a crowd. I'm talking 30, 40 people deep. And they always put the brand new games right near the front of the arcade because it was closest to the mall and it would draw the most attention. And I'll never forget, dude, there was a crowd, 30, 40 people standing around the front of this. And I told my parents, I was just like, I'm out. I'm not even asking permission. I have to go see what's going on. And there was this game, Mortal Kombat. Well, it was a fighting game. And at the time, the graphics were groundbreaking and everything else. And people were like, oh, this game looks great. And then I watched that guy's spine get ripped out of his body.
Yeah.
And like, as an impressionable, like 8-year-old kid, I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Like, how is this possible in a video game? And
get over here.
You didn't have the internet back then. So you like, people that knew how to do the fatalities would not tell you.
Yeah.
Because they were like the super cool guys playing the arcade game. And if, you'd get fatality'd, and that was like, that guy was just the king of the arcade right then. Is like, if he knew how to do the moves, Did
you have a game that you were king of the arcade with?
I, hands down, mine was Street Fighter 2. It was at the local 7-Eleven. I probably spent my college savings playing Street Fighter 2 arcade game at the 7-Eleven. There was a time when it moved to consoles that I would have bet any amount of money that I had that I could beat anybody at Street Fighter 2. Like, I was at the height of my game, man. There was nobody that I wouldn't take on, and Ken was my guy. I could just demolish people with Ken.
I love that feeling of just being able to, like, just know that you're better than everyone else at this very, very specific thing.
What was cool in the arcades, too, is I don't know if this was true for you guys, but if you were playing the fighting games, because they were really popular, the guy that was playing and winning would stay.
Yep.
And then you had the line of people over on the 2-player side that would put their quarters up on the dash of the arcade machine to say who was next in line. And then, like, the winner would stay, and then the challenger would come up, put his quarter in, fight you. You'd whoop him, and then the next guy would come up, grab his quarter, play you. And so it was just really cool because if you had this long line of people, and then the one guy staying in the first player spot, like, you knew that guy was like the champion. That was the guy you had to try to take down.
But then when he lost, like, it was like a moment.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, taking down Goliath. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, see, I was never the king of anything in the arcades because we never owned a video game system growing up. So I only got to play, with my 4 quarters maybe once a week. So I was never that good at any of those games, but I was not a huge fan of Mortal Kombat, but I was a big fan of Killer Instinct.
Oh, that game was great.
There was a place here, it's actually still around, called Great Skate, and I used to play over there here in Phoenix. And I would play a ton of Killer Instinct, and I loved playing with Orchid. She had like, I don't know, like green, like a green outfit, and she would kick. Yeah. And I loved Orchid, and I got pretty decent at Killer Instinct, but never where I was, like the king of the arcade.
Killer Instinct was great because you had like the cats and stuff, and the wolves and all that.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, that was a neat game.
My game that I was king of fun. It was dated when I started playing it, so it wasn't a brand new game. But they had a Punch-Out.
Oh, the Mike Tyson's Punch-Out?
Yeah, so they had little joysticks where, like, you just swing them back and forth, and, like, you could do combos and, like, hooks and uppercuts and all that. And that was so much fun. And I think it was just because I was really young and I could just do the joysticks as fast as possible. But I remember wrecking people over and over, and definitely out of my friend group. Like, I was the king of Punch-Out.
Dude, Punch-Out still holds up. My 10-year-old plays it all the time. And, like, I wouldn't give him any hints. It was funny because I'd watch him play, and I could remember because I never owned an NES, but, I mean, don't tell the cops, but I downloaded a lot of emulators, like, in my high school years, and I played a lot of Punch-Out then, and so I still remembered, like, oh yeah, this is the guy that you wait until, like, his shorts drop, and then you punch him in the stomach.
King Hippo.
Yeah, King Hippo.
Glass Joe. I remember a lot of those guys, man.
So I wouldn't tell him. I would just watch him try to figure it out, and yeah, he still loves that game. It holds up.
Since Paul has confessed to 2 crimes during this brief podcast, stealing tokens and then downloading emulators, I feel like I've got to share a story with you guys, because this not only ties into crime, but also being the king of the arcade.
All right, let's hear it.
All right, so You know how like you only got that dollar's worth of quarters to play with, Paul, right?
Yeah.
So my brother was a pretty ingenious teenager at the time.
Would he tie a string to the quarter, put it in, and pull it back?
Dude, he no lie, my brother spent a week like perfecting this technique and getting like the weight of the quarter right, the length of the thread right. I mean, my dad had like a big vise down in the basement. My brother would like clamp the quarter and then try different size drill bits and different size like thread and string and fishing line. And I mean, this was this whole process. And then we went to the 7-Eleven where I was playing Street Fighter because we wanted to try it out. It was right down the street from our house. And he brought that with him and he tried it and it worked. Like it legitimately worked. He found the spot because there's like a little hook wire that registers when a coin goes past. So it just hits that wire and then that's a credit. And he figured out that if you can find that spot and then just sit there and jiggle the quarter, that it thinks its quarter's passing by and it'll rack up credits. So we did this for a little while. And then one day, the grand hurrah, we rigged up like 8 of these quarters and we went to Aladdin's castle and spent the entire day there. And we would put on like 99 credits on machines and kids would walk by. Right. And we'd be like, hey, do you want to play? And they'd be like, nobody gave away quarters at the arcade. Right. But we'd be like, hey, you want to play? I got extra credits. Like I got extra credits. And they'd be like, what? And they'd look over and they'd see 99 credits on the machine. And they'd look at you like, how, dude? That's 99 quarters. Like how is this possible? It was awesome, man. We never got caught. And then when you were done with the credits, he just snapped the thread and the quarter would fall down into the bin. So it was foolproof. Man, it was the greatest thing ever.
If you like definitely pulled a grandpa and told the story that could definitely be a movie, that was that story.
It was phenomenal.
That's definitely a scene in a movie somewhere.
Honestly, it might still work. I don't know. Now I'm kind of tempted to try it.
On modern machines, like you can't do that at Dave & Buster's. They have cards. They have debit cards for everything.
Yeah, but I'm saying if you could find an actual quarter-fed machine somewhere, I bet it would still work.
Now what you need to do is get one of those credit card spoofers and then walk by someone with their Dave & Buster's card and spoof their Dave & Buster cards to get free credits.
We just went too far on that, Todd.
I'm
committing petty crimes. Todd's
intercepting RFIDs from the credit cards. It's a whole new level. You got a kid on the way, Todd. You can't be taking those chances.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my crime story. So I had to share since Paul was, confessing to some stuff there too.
Yeah, I just begged my parents like a normal kid.
That was the thing too, wasn't it? Is like begging your parents for quarters, and they knew you were just going to drop it in an arcade game, but it was like the biggest reward ever, though, man. Like But
in hindsight, like being a parent, like if my kid would just go to the arcade so I could shop through Target or something by myself, like I would be totally fine with that. That's worth a couple dollars.
They were just getting rid of us.
Yeah, I think so.
This changes everything.
I know. We were the ones who were getting duped this whole time.
I know, right? Hey, I do remember when I was little and I did not know enough. My dad used to take me into the arcade and tell me that I was playing the games, but it was just that, how they just sit there and run the demo over and over and stuff.
Right.
So he would sit there and be like, "Ooh, turn the wheel," and I'd be like, "Yay!" And then it was like he'd never put a quarter in the machine at all.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I want to wrap up this episode, but before I do, let's do top 3 arcade games.
Ooh.
You guys cool with that?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like that's an easy 3 for me.
All right, Paul, go first. You got them queued up.
Am I doing just one or all 3?
Let's do all 3.
All right. First of all, The Simpsons. Absolutely loved The Simpsons. The Simpsons were at the peak of their popularity. And you could play like Homer and Marge, and if you would hit attack at the same time, they'd like grab hands and run around the screen. Super fun. You could play up to 4 people. Absolutely loved it. Also, NFL Blitz.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys play NFL Blitz?
That's a good game.
Yeah.
Dude, Blitz was great because there were no rules in that game. Like pass interference did not exist in that game. So, the quarterback would drop back, throw these deep passes, and you could just spearhead the receiver, and then even after they would blow the whistle, you would still like jump in the air and slam down on the opponents. And I loved
late
Blitz.
hits. Late hits is like just that was the moment to shine on that game. Where like when someone was down, it's just body slam, body slam, body slam for like another 3-4 seconds.
Absolutely. And my number one, I thought for sure Todd was going to bring this up earlier, DDR.
Oh.
When Josh mentioned the huge crowds around Mortal Kombat, the first thing I thought when he said that for me was DDR. DDR would have 60 people around watching the 1 or 2 people who were playing, and I loved playing DDR. I bought the pads like on, I think it was the first Xbox.
Which we should clarify is Dance Dance Revolution for those that don't know. Yeah.
Dance Dance Revolution, loved it with the dance pads, and I remember buying all of them. I remember having like Disney DDR, and usually they were like techno, with all the originals, but I bought all of them on Xbox. Loved playing DDR.
That's a good list.
I've never played that game.
Really?
Wow. I never, for some reason, it's
right
like,
after
it's
your
funny.
time, huh?
Yeah, maybe. It's like, I saw people playing it. It's just, I've never played any of the games where you stand like your skateboard game, Todd. Never played that. Never played DDR. Like,
you should buy DDR.
That's a workout,
Hook it up to your computer. And then just do a live stream of day 1, hour 0 of DDR.
That would be pretty funny. That would be
amazing.
Comedy gold.
Well, you know what sucks is DDR got replaced by like Just Dance, and Just Dance is nowhere near as good or as fun as DDR. They're not even remotely close to one another.
Agreed.
What about you, Todd?
All right.
Oh, you want me to go next?
No, I'll go. Okay. I'll go. I have my list queued up. Coming in at number 3, Cruising in the USA.
Yeah,
that was a good racing game. Man.
I love Cruising the USA.
It was great on I think N64, and in the arcade it was just so much fun.
Yep, and then Cruising the World came after.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
it did have a sequel.
That was the sequel. Yeah,
that's right.
They took it worldwide.
Yeah.
All right, this one I might get a little bit of hate for it just because it technically I guess is a game. But at my favorite arcade, there was the ring of lights, and then you just waited for it to come around, and then you pressed the button and you tried to time it right.
Oh, on the jackpot, the little light? Yeah.
Yeah. So at my arcade, it was a Titanic one. So like they had 3 levels, and if you put in 3 tokens and got it, like you got this ginormous jackpot that was, thousands and thousands of tickets. Which I did hit once on the most expensive one on my birthday.
Oh, nice. That's the best birthday present.
That's a memorable birthday right there.
Yeah. Yep. So that was definitely like, it has to be in the top of my list just because there's just this one moment that made me so, so happy. And then the last one on my list, it should be on everybody's list. Area 51.
So good.
That was the shooting game, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that was the shooting games. Yeah, where you busted in Area 51 and then you had to kill all the aliens
and the army troops,
and it was amazing. It's the classic. Yeah.
Yeah. Time Crisis was a lot of fun too. Area 51 was just the OG version.
Yeah.
Those co-op shooters were fun, and those are still around today. Like that's one of my favorite things at Dave & Buster's to do is like actually get 2 or 3 friends together and play them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. My list is a little bit older, and obviously there's going to be a trend here. But
Galaga, Tetris.
No, Centipede, man. Come on. So Street Fighter, that's in my top 3 for sure. I was the king of that game. I mean, when it came out, it was super great.
1 or 2?
2.
Yeah, 2.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. The original Street Fighter was really good at the time, but when Street Fighter 2 came out, that was the height of like the arcade experience and all that for me. This one, a lot of people may not know this one, but this is a super, super duper fun co-op game. So Gauntlet.
Oh, so Gauntlet.
Gauntlet was unique because you had 4 player positions instead of just the standard 2, and you had. It was a co-op game, which was kind of rare for a lot of arcade games because most of them were, try to finish first or beat the other person. And I still to this day just remember the voice actor. So it'd be like, Valkyrie is about to die. And then like the dude on Valkyrie's like, I need food. Somebody give me some food. Somebody let me grab that. And then like the wizard would run over it instead. And like, it was just, that game was great, man. That was definitely a quarter hog because you'd sit there and try to play that for hours with your buddies. So Gauntlet was a lot of fun. And then this one's a little off the wall, but I just remember having a ton of fun memories playing this was Rampage.
Oh, yeah.
So do you remember Rampage with the...
Destroy all the skyscrapers.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I know that's old and people are like, wait, what? But when you were with you and your two buddies and you were Godzilla, King Kong, and whatever the other weird guy was, the
There was
wolf
like
guy,
a wolf.
the wolf man.
Yeah.
And then you'd just be like knocking down the helicopters and you'd grab the little soldiers out of the window and eat them. And that's how you got a little bit of health back and stuff. Like, I don't know. It was like those co-op arcade experiences were great.
We always complain about the 3-player multiplayer games, but Rampage was the OG 3-player.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
They started the trend.
Obviously a little bit biased because that's just some really good memories with friends. I mean, there's some obviously some much better arcade games out there, but for me, those were the ones that were just so much fun to play with friends.
There's one there's one that none of us mentioned that I think is at least worth mentioning in the top 3 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, I was going to say if nobody brought that up.
Fun.
Yeah, that game is iconic as anything.
Which turtle would you guys play as?
Donatello for me.
I always picked Donatello.
Yeah.
I loved the bow staff.
Yep.
Yeah, that was the most fun.
Really? All 3 of us? Everyone always wanted Michelangelo.
I love the size, but they sucked in the game. They weren't nearly as good as Donatello's staff.
Yeah. So one other game series that we haven't mentioned at all, because I never played them when they came out, were the Metal Slug games. But once I started downloading arcade emulators, I remember going through like 4 or 5 of the Metal Slug games, and those are incredibly good. So if you're a little bit younger than us, maybe you're going crazy because no one's mentioned it, but Metal Slug is awesome.
Those were fun co-op games too. The side-scroller shooters.
Yeah, the run and gunner.
Yeah.
Platform. Yeah, those are great.
I could talk these games all day, man. There's so many good.
I had to go look up arcade machines after this, and I'm too poor to buy them.
No, they're expensive.
They're expensive.
Yeah.
But I still had to look them up.
All right, guys. Well, that's our show this week. We had fun talking about arcade games, some of our favorites, some childhood memories. We'd love to know, what arcades did you enjoy as children? Or, what are some of your top arcade games? So hit us up on Twitter at MultiplayerPod. And I guess until next week, see you guys later.
See you guys.
Cowabunga!
Game over.